Hey, it's Ashley and Patty, and we are your co-hosts for the Phoenix Forte podcast. Join us to connect to healing and joy after divorce by chatting with phenomenal guests, fearlessly confronting hot topics, and feeling the spirit with our mic drop moments.
So jump into the flames, rise from the ashes, and be strong and loud as you hang out with us here at Phoenix Forte. All right. Welcome back, everybody. We are so excited that you are choosing to listen to Phoenix Forte. We're so excited to be having guests join our podcast. And Patty and I are just really happy to be here and be chatting.
Yes, we are. Hi, Ashley. Welcome back, listeners.
Today on our podcast, we have a good friend of mine. Her name is Shauna. And her story and what she's experienced has just been so inspirational for me. She and I met each other through a support group. And she's been someone that I turn to and that I lean on. And so I'm really honored that you would come on and talk with us today.
Hello, I'm so happy to be here. Thank you.
We'd love to start with just getting to know you a little bit and sharing a little bit of your story, if that's okay.
Sure. So I was married for 29 years, and I have two amazing adult daughters, and who were both married and out of the house. And I basically went through massive betrayal trauma during my marriage. And I know you asked, whether I filed for divorce or whether he filed for divorce, and I did. And it was probably the hardest decision I've ever made thus far in my life. Honestly, I hope I don't ever have to make a harder decision, right? I mean, let's let that be the hardest decision.
Yeah, that's not easy.
It was not an easy decision. And it's the hardest thing I've ever done. And, sometimes if there's things in my life I don't want to do or I'm worried about or stressed about, I'll just say to myself, girl, you have been through the hardest thing, pretty much one of the hardest things a person can go through. So you got this, you can do it. Because of who my ex-husband is, I don't think he would have ever filed for divorce. He was pretty happy, living a secret life and having this family structure sort of as a facade. And so I had to make that decision. And it felt at the time, and I know that it is true to a certain degree, but I kept thinking, I have to be the one to break up my family. I don't want to do this. I love this man. I've committed so much of my life to try to help him heal and become a better person. And I certainly didn't want it for my children. But nevertheless, I knew that this was a person who was not going to change and I was not safe with. And so I went ahead. And honestly, I think it was surprising to him that he knows how much my family means to me. And I think he was just banking on the fact that I would never have the courage to end our family. And so I think that was a little bit of a surprise that I actually ended up doing it, but it was absolutely necessary for my spiritual, mental, physical health to end our relationship.
Yeah. That had to be so hard to be in that space of, and choosing to break your family. That's what you said, breaking up a family, mm-hmm. and trying to navigate making that decision. How did you move past that really terrifying idea of, if I make this choice, I'm breaking my family?
It was really hard. I was super frozen and I look back on that time, it's kind of a shades of a nightmare. I was just so afraid. I quite honestly, I'm not exactly sure what I was afraid of in hindsight. I don't know if I was literally worried about him hurting me in some way physically if he found out. I don't know, but I kind of tiptoed around it. And I would, I would go places. For example, I'd go get my hair cut and I'd think, okay, next time I'm here, I'll tell him that I'm definitely filing, and I was like putting these, I was frozen and terrified. And it took me a really long time to actually get everything done to take care of it. So, but once, when I could really calm down and really tap into feelings and that, I knew it was the right thing. I knew, as I am a very hopeful person, I believe so much that people can change. And I rested so much of my life on this hope that things could change. And it was very clear it never would be. It was never going to change. And so when I could tap into that knowledge that I was making the right decision, I felt from a spiritual standpoint that I had been kind of given the okay from God that it was okay for me to do this to my family. That is what I kind of went through to tap into that. It was a very scary time. And you know, kind of what happened as the divorce went on with his behavior was something I never anticipated, and probably might have given me a little pause about filing for divorce if I knew what was coming in the future. But yeah, I just had to rest on that knowledge that I was doing the right thing, even though it was super difficult.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds to me as if that you took this very brave and courageous step and chose healthy and chose safety and chose like the life that God intended for you rather than what you were experiencing at that time, for sure. So I
Absolutely.
congratulate you on that. Yeah, really leading by example for your family. So it's really beautiful.
Thank you. Yeah, I
Mhm.
mean, I really do have such strong hope in basically humanity that people can change, and I rested on that hope for such a long time.
Right.
And I can have hope for other things, right? You don't give up hope.
Right.
You give up. I always wanted to make sure that I connected with my hope. I'm a very hopeful person,
Mm.
and I don't want to just totally give up on hope. But I had to give up on hope that I could save. I just really wanted to save my husband and save my marriage, and I just had to finally give that up.
Yeah. Wow.
What a beautiful sentiment of you don't give up on hope, but your hope
Yeah.
has to shift into something else. And even just acknowledging, I can't be the one that saves this. I'm not the savior. I'm not going to be able to save this.
Yeah.
And relinquishing that feels almost hopeless. Like there's almost a side of I give up. But really, when it's done with the kind of power that you're using as you talk about it, where it's no, actually, I can't be the one that saves this. I'm handing it to my savior. And I feel like I'm actually supposed to be ending this. It's not hopeless. It's empowering and confidence building almost, just listening to you talk about it.
Yeah, it's a dark abyss to walk in, right? Because you don't know when you close that door. I am a product of a 60-year marriage. When my father passed away, my parents had been married for 60 years. And I never, ever had any idea that my life would look anything differently than that. And so you're opening this door and shutting it. And to me, it felt like I was just walking into the dark night of the soul. I had no idea what was on that other side of the door. But like you say, I needed to relinquish control over the fact that this could be, that this could be changed, and have that assurance and hope that, yes, that there was something aside on the other side of that door. There was something more than just darkness and fear and uncertainty.
Yes.
Yes, I really like that a lot. That's good.
It reminds me of Shauna and I know each other from a support group, and another member of the support group has this metaphor that she uses that I just love. And what you're saying reminds me of it. So I'm going to share it if that's okay. She talks about how in these marriages that are just struggling for one reason or another, often addiction or abuse is involved. It's kind of like you're standing there and you're starving and you're holding this paper plate, and on this paper plate are shambles of what could be food. So like cracker crumbs and some moldy cheese, and you're on there and you're just starving. You're aching to have the fullness that would come from a nice, healthy relationship. But because you don't have it, because you're starving, standing there with your crinkled paper plate and your crumbs feels almost like safety. Like if I needed to eat, I could eat this moldy cheese. If I needed to eat, there would be that cracker, right? And this moment that you're talking about of on the other side of that door, what's it going to look like? Our friend describes it as there's this moment where the Savior says, "Come with me." But in order to come with me, you have to let go of that thing. You have to let go of that paper plate with its crumbs, its things that aren't actually going to fill you. They're not actually going to satiate you. You have to let go of that because that's not real safety. Real safety is with me. And that moment of letting go, when you have dropped the paper plate, but you haven't actually grabbed the Savior's hand yet, there is a moment where it feels like you have nothing, where it's just loss. There's just nothing there and you don't have it. The end of the story, then, like, he takes you around the corner and there's this big buffet and it's all you can eat. And there's all of the love and all of the filling that you could get comes from the Savior. The safety comes from him. But that moment, that dark abyss, what's behind this door moment, letting go of that plate moment is so scary. It's so hard.
It is. It really, really, really is. And I think that's, like you mentioned, so many times when you're involved in abuse in a relationship, you have become so used to breadcrumbs, right? Those crumbs, like you say, you're hanging on because it's like, I've got some breadcrumbs here.
Yeah.
And I need these, right? And I've invested in this plate that I'm holding. And yeah, just to drop it and walk away. Sometimes it's so difficult to get clarity until you are out of that a cycle of abuse, whether it's divorce or separation. You can't really see what's going on. You can't see how strongly you're grasping onto these crumbs that are giving you nothing. They are not nourishing you as a human being, but it's so hard to see that when you're in the middle of it.
When that's all you have. And that's your safety.
That is so powerful. Yes, that is so powerful. And I love that I want you to say that again. You said something about the crumbs. They are not, nourishing you. Is that what you said? They're not going to nourish you.
Yes, they're not nourishing you, but
they're not nourishing you.
Yeah.
Yes, I love that. Yes, that's absolutely accurate. Yes. So good. So good.
Shauna, you have this unique experience of being a professional in your industry, fairly well known. And we were talking before about what it was like going through this transition of divorce and really a transition of identity that comes with that, as you have to really evaluate who you are and what you thought your life and future was going to look like. And I would love if you would just speak more about your experience.
Yeah, when I went through my divorce, my lawyer was very wise and told me that I could write in a legal name change into the paperwork. And if I never wanted to change my name, great. But if I ever did, that I would have this ability to have the legal documents ready for me to go. And I really struggled with that decision. I maybe my decision might have been different if my children were younger. But both of my kids were getting ready to get married. They were going to change their name. I went to my children and asked them, what do you think about this? I did have some colleagues kind of push back on changing my name because I did have 29 years of professional experience with my old name. But I was writing a book at the time, and we had the artwork all ready to go. This was before I was even divorced and had legally changed my name. Everything was ready to go. And I just kept having this feeling of, I don't want to give him the honor of this book. The book is very controversial. It was very difficult to write. It's about abuse. And my family, the Packers, are a bunch of flawed people, right? But I'm so proud of my family, and I'm proud of our integrity and our hard work and our love for each other. And I thought, if I'm going to give credit, I'm going to give credit to my family and the people who have loved and supported me. And my dad was the most hardworking, honorable man I've ever known in my life. And so I spoke to my publisher and I said, I know we're at the 11th hour. I know we're getting ready to publish. I know the artwork is done, but can we change my name? And he was lovely. And he did that. And, it was really scary. It really is scary to change your identity. And I thought, I am self-employed. I worried about business attrition because maybe people wouldn't know me anymore, but that just hasn't happened. And honestly, I used my maiden name on LinkedIn, on Facebook. I had both names. And when I took the name off, I was like expecting this, barrage of what's going on. And there were very, very few people who even noticed and even reached out to me. It's not affected my professional career in any way.
Wow.
And I'm just really happy every time I say I'm Shauna Packer. It just fills me with great joy. And I don't think, no matter what happens in my life, I don't think I would ever change my name again. So it was, but I want to be clear that it was a difficult decision. I didn't just wake up and go, I don't want to do this anymore. But it felt right for me. And I'm so happy with my original name. It's who I am.
That is so beautiful. I love that. And I love that when you like, every time I get to say my name, it's like, yes. And I can totally relate to that too. It's such a powerful, powerful thing when you get to refer back to that. So if it's like you get a little piece of your power back, getting to re-own that and stand in that. So I can definitely relate to that. So thank you so much for sharing that. Seriously, I appreciate it.
Yes, that was beautiful. I was talking to Patty before about I go by my maiden name professionally. And when I was switching over from using the married name to the maiden name professionally, I had people who were like, oh, congratulations, you got married again. I was like, no.
Yeah.
This is actually me reclaiming myself. My power comes from the family that I grew up with. I'm one of the lucky ones who has this incredible family. And like you were talking about, we're resilient, and they're the people who were there for me. And that Levitt last name is where my power comes from. That's a piece of my identity. And then by extension, if we even go farther than that, like my identity as a child of God is where my power comes from. But he brought me into this family, and that's what gives me the power, and not wanting to give credit where credit wasn't due. Because the reason that I'm okay is because of the Levitt.
Right. And there is, for me, there's that cringing, right? Where I hear the name, I'm like, ooh, it's just not, it does not resonate with me in any way. And like I say, I think I would have maybe done the same thing where I would have professionally changed my name, but personally kept my name if my children were young. I don't know, but yeah, you're right. There is such a power. And as a writer, the ironic thing is I, for years and years, tried to come up with a pen name. And I tried out all these different names, and there's a lot of really amazing names in the world, but I'm Shauna Packer, and that's just that's my identity. And it's been amazing to be me again.
Yes, I love that. And I feel like, I guess I definitely had some amount of attachment to my last name before I was married, but I feel like that attachment grew so much through this experience. And it's like, wow, I don't know that I could ever take for granted again ever my last name, because I love it so much. And every time I get to say it, yes, I can relate to the feelings that you're describing so much, because it feels empowering. It's just, yeah, it's a really beautiful, beautiful thing. And I go back and forth all the time, actually pretty regular. Like, I don't think I ever want to change my name again either. Like, ever. Yeah, I think I'm solid here. I like this one. This is the one I think I want to keep no matter what. I'll just keep it.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah, like a little prenup if you ever get remarried. So I'm never changing my name, just FYI.
Yes.
I love how you described that idea of it was just so powerful. And Shauna, even when you said your name, you were like, I am Shauna Packer. And as you said that, you got a little taller, your face brightened a little more. Like, it very clearly brings power to you to say that name. And what a powerful concept that is, of just knowing what our identity is and who we are, and then allowing that to be a source of strength, a source of power, was really incredible. It was
and my kids even connect with that name, right? I mean, they grew up their whole life with me having this other name, but I love it. Sometimes when we go out, to eat or something, they just say, Packer party of 5. And they're proud to be Packers too. And that's their heritage, that family strength of, resilience and love. And so it's fun to watch them. I was so worried that they would be upset with me for doing that. And like I said, I did ask their, what do you think? I wasn't really asking their permission, but I didn't want to just plow ahead with something that would be really upsetting. But I love the fact that they've connected with that as well.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
Yeah, I'm so glad that you shared that part, because I can imagine that's something that other women in the world are going to be able to relate to. And I think it's beautiful that you didn't go to your children to ask for permission, but you at least included their feelings in the process of your decision. You still went to them and just kind of at least heard them out to how they were feeling about that, and how beautiful of a thing that they really supported you in it and really their own identity with your last name. And so I just think that's a really cool thing. And I also wanted to highlight in part of your story that you shared, with this publisher that you had that was like so gracious and empathetic and compassionate towards experience. I feel like, wow, what an appreciation I have for that human being and for them changing that, because that's just awesome. So I really appreciate you sharing that part too.
Yeah.
There's this new definition that I have. So I work a lot in betrayal trauma recovery, and that word recovery, I have this new view on. In Moab, which is where I grew up, we have this vast search and rescue team because people go out and do adventuring and then they get lost and they need rescuing and they're just kind of in the middle of nowhere. So we have this really experienced search and rescue team that rappel from helicopters and rappel off of cliffs and will hoist you up them. And they're amazing. So one day I was reading their report because they'll talk about like, we did this today. And it said, we were able to recover all parties of the individual, right? I mean, all individuals of the party. I swapped those. And the way they used the word recover was to mean we went out and we found them and we brought them back safely. And so now when I'm working in betrayal trauma recovery, my favorite part has become this idea of I'm not even sure who I am, which happens in betrayal trauma, and going out and finding who I am and bringing myself home safely, bringing back these pieces, this power, this identity piece. And so I've really appreciated how beautiful this discussion on my identity and who I am and how much power that has brought, because I think that's like the clutch point of recovery work is really finding out who you are.
Yeah, most definitely. Most definitely. I've been actually thinking a lot about, Ashley always has great insights about, she really has a way of looking at things that helps me think of things in different ways. But I've actually been thinking recently about this idea of the lost sheep, right? That the Savior goes out after the lost sheep, but generally we think about that with sin, or, you know what I mean? We've separated ourselves with sin, or some other issues. But I think that we can, like you say, we can ask the Savior to come and get us, just because we need to be rescued from our pain and our sorrow and the grief that we experience. So I really like how you brought that up.
Yes. Oh, I love that. And then bringing it back to the Savior. Now we are all the lost sheep. We are all striving to be rescued and recovered. And He is the Savior that will come in and do that. Yeah. All right. At our end, we always like to end with our mic drop, which is just focusing on what music, what song helped you through your recovery. So what have you chosen, Shauna?
Okay, so when you asked me this question, I literally was like, oh, shoot, here's where Shauna fails the test. Because I love music, literally every kind of music I love. And, but I also am obsessed with reading. And usually my goal in life is to try to read between 5 and 7 books at a time. And in order to do that, I have to listen to audiobooks. So right now I'm listening to 3 audiobooks. So if I have a minute, instead of turning on music, which I love, I'm going to turn on a CD. I'm going to turn on my phone. Right. That's what I'm going to do. So I literally was frozen. I'm like, I don't know what to say. And a lot of times when we're going through hard times, we turn to, and I love, spirituals and gospel music and hymns. One of my favorite parts of attending any worship service is the music. But when I was going through my divorce, I was having a little bit of a struggle with my relationship with God. And I felt very abandoned and alone, and that he loves everyone else in the world but me. And so listening to those uplifting songs about how God's there for you and all that, I just couldn't do. So I literally thought, I'm going to have to tell Ashley I have no song. But then I remembered, hurrah, that I listened for basically 2 straight years. I listened to the Les Miserables original London cast soundtrack. Yes. And a lot of people think that Les Mis is very depressing. it does deal with some very dark themes, but I love every single song on it because it talks about love. It talks about devotion, redemption, becoming a person that is fuller through love and through being served by other people. And so once I figured that part out, I thought, I don't know what song to say because I loved all of them, but I decided on the finale song. And one of the reasons why I really like this song is in this song, the character Jean Valjean, his daughter that he's adopted, Cosette, is getting married. Well, Jean Valjean goes off and hides himself in shame. There's a lot of reasons why Jean Valjean is hiding in shame, but I went through a lot of shame with the ending of my marriage, and I didn't do anything to break the bonds of my marriage. But for some reason, the reality of who my husband was very shameful for me. And I, like Jean Valjean, hid away. I didn't want to talk to people. I mean, honestly, I think there are still some people that don't know that I'm divorced because I really, really needed to hide away. So at the end of the show, Jean Valjean is hiding, and Cosette, this dear daughter that he has raised so well and adopted, comes and finds him. And he says, now, and he's at the end of his life, he's dying. And he says to her, now that you're here again beside me, now I can die in peace because now my life is blessed. And I love this idea of that perhaps at the end of our life, we can look back on it. And instead of focusing on all the strife and the grief and the pain, we're just looking at the blessings. And they talk about, take my love, for love is everlasting, and to love another person is to see the face of God. I believe in the power of love. I believe that love is everlasting. I think it's one of the few things that stays on this earth once we're gone. And then at the very end, as Jean Valjean is passing from this life, he is joined by these angels and all the people that have gone during the show. And they swell and sing, even the darkest night will end and the sun will rise. And going through a divorce is a very dark night. And metaphorically, it seems to go on and on and on. And you just have this sense it's never going to go away, and you're never going to get better, and you're never going to heal, and you're never going to be happy. But every dark night ends and the sun rises, no matter what that looks like for us. I personally feel like one of the greatest emotions that I seek after is peace. Peace is my favorite emotion, even almost more than happiness. I want to feel peace. And so I just love the ending where they swell with this idea that dark nights do end and the sun does rise.
Oh my gosh. I literally have goosebumps as I'm just listening to you. Yes. Oh, that was beautiful. Thank you for sharing this song. I've got the lyrics up, but I also love this show. I also listen to it nonstop in a different period of my life, but I have all of the words memorized and all of the pieces, and I've seen it a number of times on stage. And this last scene where Jean Valjean is accepting that maybe he is loved. He spent his whole life thinking that he couldn't be loved, that no one loved him, that love was useless. He didn't care about other people. And then he had this shift in heart and started caring for people and started loving. In this last song, he says it's the story of a person who moved from hatred to love. I can't find it in there, but that's the gist of it, that he's gone from being so hard to learning how to love. And then at the very end, he finally accepts that he is worthy of love. Mm-hmm. And he finally says, okay, take me home. Like, take me back. I'm worthy and I accept of love. So as you were talking, I'm just imagining this scene of him there saying, yes, I am worthy. Yes. I've learned to love and I've discovered that I am worthy of love. And it was just so beautiful for me as a moment, visualizing this thing and listening to you talk about how beautiful love is. like the real love though, not this cracker crumb and moldy cheese on a plate kind of love.
Macaroni
But,
necklace.
yeah, but real actual love, and how beautiful and all encompassing and hopeful that is.
Yes. Yes. And I love, you talk about Jean Valjean. I love his whole character arc. And, in the beginning I was listening to it on CD, and it had disc 1 and disc 2. And in the beginning for a long time, I only listened to disc 1. Right. And that's where Fontaine sings about, I had a dream and life killed my dream. And that's how I felt. And when Jean Valjean is, he has this horrifically punitive sentence for stealing a loaf of bread to save his sister's daughter from starvation. He's put essentially on a rowing chain gang. And then he's forced to carry this letter saying he's a prisoner. And he's very bitter, and he is a victim. And he's angry, and he hates. And I don't think I went to the place where I hated, but I needed to be a victim for a while. I just needed to kind of live in that place where this isn't right. It's not fair. This is not what I wanted in my life. And I'm so frustrated. And then as I noticed, as I started to heal, then I could start listening to disc 2 a little bit more, right? Where there's love, and there's, Cosette gets to find this amazing man that she loves. And like you say, Jean Valjean realizes that he too is worthy of love after all he's been through. So I feel like there's a sort of a betrayal trauma journey that happens in a different way throughout the whole soundtrack.
Yes, I love that. It's just it's so powerful. And I still remember that song to this day. Like when I actually saw the movie the first time I saw the movie, that's my very first experience with Les Mis. And I remember that song at the end, it like brought emotion to my eyes, and just it's such a powerful, powerful piece of music, and so like I will never forget that feeling of when I heard it for the first time. And I just love the part that you're talking about with the darkest night will end and the sun will rise. And that's actually something that Ashley has really taught me a lot about, is that every season, like this is just a season and it will end, a new season will begin. And that's just exactly what it reminded me of. And that is so such a hopeful piece, especially connecting back to you being such a hopeful person. I feel like that's probably a gift God has given you, Shauna, is your hope. And I feel like, yes, that this was just the most perfect song. So I just thank you for bringing that. That's just so good.
Well, Patty, you have to go and see it on the stage because the movie's good, but the stage is literally, I always tell people I go with, I'm like, I'll get the Kleenex box out, because when the end comes, you're going to watch me absolutely fall apart, because it's just so beautiful and so emotional. And it's a really incredible experience.
It's coming to Utah this summer, and I'm already preparing for it. Patty, come down. We'll have a little moment. I want to end with, we talked about, Shauna, you talked about that dark door and what's on the other side of this abyss. And there's this phrase of the music. That's not the word I'm looking for, but we'll go with it. That's just been standing out to me. So it says, somewhere beyond the barricade. That's what I'm imagining, this like dark door where you just can't get through. Somewhere beyond the barricade, is there a world you long to see? Do you hear the people sing? Say, do you hear the distant drums? It is the future that they bring when tomorrow comes. And I hope that people listening get the metaphor of, on the other side of that dark door, on the other side of this, there is hope. There are people singing, and we are banging drums, not in anger, but with just like celebration that there is peace and there is hope and there is a future on the other side of that really scary part. So thank you for bringing this song.
Absolutely.
And your story.
Yes. Thank you.
We really appreciate having you here. Is there any final words you would like to leave with listeners?
Yeah, is there a way our listeners can find you or connect with you in some way?
You can find me. I do have a book on Amazon. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on Facebook. I love to help people. The one thing that I took away from this is that if I could survive, there were times where I wasn't sure I was going to survive, but if I could survive, that I would try to spend my life helping other people. So I'm always happy to help in any way I can. And, you're absolutely right. And the question I get asked all the time is, why aren't you dating, and why aren't you happy? And I have a lot of work to do there's a lot of processing I still need to do. And I guess my final word is, we don't have to have a Hollywood per se happy ending, right? Where Shauna gets a divorce and then, a year later, the man of her dreams walks in. It doesn't have to look like that, right? We all get our happy ending. And it's a beautiful thing to be able to find yourself, because I still to this day feel like I'm trying to figure out who I am after all of those years. And so I hate I dislike the idea of people feeling like there's something wrong with them, or it's bad that they're not getting this Hollywood typical happy ending to their divorce story. There is, once we get beyond that barricade, there's a whole host of discovery we can do, and we get to be happy in whatever way that looks like for us.
Yes, we do.
I love that. Thank you.
I love that too. Yes.
All right. We'll link to all of your sites in the comments so people can find you nice and easy and find your book. And thanks so much for coming.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Okay, well, Ashley, I'm so glad I got to meet her. And wow, that was, for everybody listening, my first encounter with Shauna, and she is just absolutely wonderful. And I really think a lot of the things that she shared, I really hope our listeners are able to relate to, and I really think that they will. And so, yeah, just thanks everybody for listening. And thank you so much, Shauna, for coming on. We really enjoyed this episode today.
Yes, thank you. It was powerful. And I'm just kind of honored that Shauna was willing to come on and share her story with us. And to our listeners of Phoenix Forte, remember, you are not crazy and you are not alone. And we'll talk to you again next episode. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening, everyone.
We would love to hear from you. Please connect with us on social media at Phoenix Forte Pod, POD. Feel free to send us any questions or comments on Instagram.